I was 26 when I arrived in Bristol, a city of winding streets and restless dreams, searching for a life I could call my own. I'd left behind a past that lingered like a bruise, disowned by my family for rejecting the suffocating faith that had governed my childhood. It wasn't just a religion, it was a prison of control, built on fear and submission, and breaking free had cost me everything. My parents, my sisters, the community I'd once called home, they'd turned their backs, leaving me to rebuild from nothing. Years of therapy had been my lifeline, teaching me to untangle the trauma, to trust again, to speak my truth without shame. By the time I settled in Bristol, I was a junior copywriter at a small creative agency, scraping by in a tiny flat and chasing a future I could believe in. That's where I met Zara, my partner's sister. She was a whirlwind, vibrant, sharp-witted, with a smile that could light up a room or cut like a blade. Zara was 32, married with a 2-year-old daughter, and trying to carve out a name as a content creator. Her Instagram was a shrine to perfection. Sunlit photos of organic breakfasts, Bible verses, and carefully curated moments of motherhood, all tied to her side hustle, selling overpriced wellness courses through a multi-level marketing scheme. "It's about empowering women," she'd say. Her voice brimming with sincerity, though I could smell the hustle beneath the gloss. Still, I liked her. She was warm, quick to share a coffee or a laugh, and when I confided in her about my past, the religious abuse, the disownment, she listened with a tenderness that felt like family. "That's so heavy," she'd said, her hand on mine. "You're so strong for getting through it." I trusted her. I thought we were building something real, a sisterhood forged in vulnerability and shared secrets. But trust is a fragile thing, and Zara was about to shatter mine. My life in Bristol wasn't perfect, but it was mine. I worked long hours at the agency, crafting slogans for brands I barely cared about, under a boss who valued deadlines over creativity. Outside of work, I had Amir, my partner of 18 months, a quiet graphic designer with a dry sense of humor and a knack for making me feel safe. His family was close-knit, and Zara was a constant presence, dropping by with her daughter, Leila, or texting me silly memes. I'd never had a sister, but Zara felt like one, or so I thought. I'd spent years rebuilding my sense of self, learning to navigate a world that didn't come with a rulebook. Therapy had given me tools, boundaries, communication, self-compassion, but it hadn't erased the scars. Zara seemed to understand that, or at least I believed she did. The betrayal came on a rainy Wednesday in November, slipping into my life like a quiet poison. I was at Amir's flat, a cozy space above a record shop in Stokes Croft, waiting for him to get home from a client meeting. The flat smelled of coffee and old books, a haven from the drizzle outside. I was sprawled on the sofa skimming a novel when Amir's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was on speaker, and Zara's voice spilled out, sharp and unguarded. "She's so dramatic," Zara was saying, her tone dripping with disdain. "Always going on about her therapy and her trauma. Like, get over it already, nobody cares." My heart stopped, the book slipping from my hands. Amir's voice came next, hesitant. "I mean, she's been through a lot, Zara. Her family." "Oh, please," Zara cut him off, her laugh like a shard of glass. "She acts like she's the only one with problems. It's exhausting. And don't get me started on her preaching about healthy communication, like she's some expert." The words hit like a slap. I sat frozen, my pulse pounding, as Zara's laughter crackled through the speaker. Amir mumbled something vague, and the call ended. I stared at the phone, my mind reeling. Zara, the woman I'd trusted with my deepest wounds, was mocking me behind my back. Worse, she was using my pain as ammunition, tearing me down to my own partner. I wanted to confront her right then, to call and demand answers, but a deeper hurt held me back. I'd shared my story with her, the religious abuse, the authoritarian control, the disownment that had left me orphaned in all but name. She'd held me when I cried, promised she understood. And now she was laughing at it, dismissing it as drama. I sat there, the rain tapping against the windows, and felt the old wounds reopen. The shame, the isolation, the fear that I'd never be enough. But beneath the pain, something else stirred, a cold, burning resolve. Zara didn't get to rewrite my story, not like this. That night, I barely slept, replaying her words in my head. I thought of the girl I'd been, the one who'd walked away from her family, her faith, her past. She'd been terrified, but she'd kept going. I wasn't that girl anymore. I'd built a life, a voice, a strength that Zara couldn't touch. And yet, her betrayal stung, not just because of what she'd said, but because of who she was to me. She wasn't just a friend, she was family, or so I'd believed. I waited until morning to text her, my hands shaking as I typed. I kept my tone calm, measured, drawing on every therapy lesson I'd learned. Hey Zara. I overheard you talking about me on speaker yesterday. It really hurt to hear you dismiss my experiences like that. Can we talk? Her reply came within minutes, bristling with defensiveness. Wow, eavesdropping now? That's mature. I don't know what you think you heard, but you're blowing this way out of proportion. I stared at the message, my jaw tight. She wasn't even pretending to apologize. I tried again, steering the conversation back to reason. I'm not trying to fight. I just want to clear the air. I thought we were close, and hearing you talk like that felt like a betrayal. Can we have an honest conversation? Her next message was a wall of text, vicious and unyielding. Honest? That's rich coming from you. Your family disowned you, and you think you can lecture me about communication? It's laughable. Maybe if healthy communication worked, you wouldn't be so alone. Don't twist this on me. Before I could respond, another notification popped up. Zara has blocked you. She'd fired her parting shot and slammed the door, leaving me with nothing but silence and rage. I sat on my bed, the phone heavy in my hand, as her words sank in. She'd weaponized my trauma, the deepest wound I carried, and thrown it in my face like a cheap insult. She knew what I'd been through, the religious abuse, the nights I'd spent sobbing in therapy, rebuilding myself from the ground up. I'd trusted her with that truth, and she'd used it to silence me, to shame me, to win. For a moment I felt small again, like the girl who'd been cast out, unworthy and unseen. But then I remembered who I was now, the woman who'd survived, who'd learned to speak, to stand, to fight. Zara didn't get to have the last word. Not this time. The idea came to me that night as I lay awake, the city humming beyond my flat's thin walls. Zara wasn't just a sister-in-law or a friend. She was a brand, a carefully crafted persona built on Instagram posts and Christian platitudes. She sold herself ASV as the perfect mom, the beacon of positivity, peddling 250-pound life coaching courses to her small but loyal following. Her image was everything, her currency, her shield. And I knew exactly how to crack it. I wasn't a content creator, not like her. My Instagram was a patchwork of my life. Photos of Bristol street art, rainy cafe windows, quotes about resilience. But I had a following, bigger than hers, built organically through my writing and my connections in the ex-religious community. People followed me because I was real, because I shared my story without shame. And that was my weapon. I opened my laptop and pulled up the screenshot of Zara's text, the one where she'd mocked my disownment, called my advice laughable. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a flicker of doubt creeping in. Was this too far? Too petty? But then I remembered her voice on that call. The way she'd laughed at my pain, and the doubt vanished. This wasn't about petty revenge. This was about reclaiming my narrative, about showing the world who Zara really was. I crafted the post with care, my copywriter's instincts kicking in. I blurred her name in the screenshot, but left enough context for those who knew her to connect the dots. Over her profile picture, I added a single clown emoji, a subtle jab but unmistakable. Below the screenshot, I wrote, "This is what betrayal looks like. Someone I trusted used my trauma, religious abuse and disownment against me to shut me up. My family's rejection wasn't a failure of communication. It was the cost of breaking free from authoritarian control. Everything I know about healthy communication, I've learned through years of therapy and hard-won resilience. A cheap shot like this? It's not just cruel, it's weak." I didn't tag her. I didn't need to. Our mutual friends, her followers, would see it, and they'd know. Before I hit post, I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. This would ripple through our social circle, through Amir's family, maybe even through my own fragile peace. But I was done hiding. I was done letting people like Zara rewrite my story. I pressed post, and the world shifted. The aftermath was a wildfire. Within hours, my Instagram story was blowing up. Friends messaged me with support, their words like lifelines. "You're so brave for calling this out," one wrote. "She's fake as hell," said another. The ex-religious community, a tight-knit group I'd connected with online, rallied hard. They reposted my story, adding their own captions about surviving abuse, reclaiming power, and exposing hypocrisy. One woman, a former evangelical who'd followed me for years, wrote, "This is why we speak out. Truth exposes the liars." I screenshot her words and added them to my story, building a series of posts about owning my narrative. By the next morning, my story had been viewed by thousands, far more than my usual reach. I wasn't trying to go viral, I didn't care about clout, but the response was overwhelming. Messages poured in, not just from friends but from strangers who'd seen the post through shares. "Thank you for being so brave," one wrote. "I went through something similar, and this gives me hope." I read each one, my chest tight with gratitude. I'd spent years feeling alone, but now I saw it. I wasn't alone. I never had been. Amir called me that afternoon, his voice strained. "Zara's freaking out," he said. "She saw your post. She's been texting me non-stop, sending screenshots, saying you declared war. She's worried everyone's talking about her." I leaned against my kitchen counter, the phone pressed to my ear. "Good," I said, my voice calm but firm. "She should be worried. She doesn't get to mock my pain and walk away clean." Amir sighed, caught in the middle. "I get why you're upset, but she's my sister. This is messy." "I know," I said, softer now, "but she made it messy first. I'm just telling the truth. We didn't break up, not then, but I felt the distance growing, a crack in the foundation. Zara's betrayal had tainted more than just our friendship. It was seeping into my relationship, my life. Still, I didn't regret it. The post wasn't just about her, it was about me, about taking back the power she'd tried to steal. Over the next few days, I heard whispers through mutual friends. Zara was in damage control, sending frantic messages to anyone who'd listen, claiming I'd misrepresented her. She'd even posted a vague Instagram story about forgiving those who hurt you, a classic passive-aggressive move. But her followers, mostly friends, family, and a handful of MLM customers, weren't buying it. A few had unfollowed her, others had liked my post, and the silence from our mutuals spoke volumes. Her perfect persona, the one she'd spent years crafting, was cracking. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The real victory wasn't her panic or her crumbling brand. It was the community that rallied around me, the messages that reminded me I was seen, heard, valued. I'd spent years rebuilding myself, learning to trust, to speak, to stand. Zara's betrayal had shaken that, but my response had rebuilt it, stronger than before. 2 years later, I was in a different place. Literally and figuratively. I'd moved to London, taken a senior copywriting job, and left Bristol behind. Amir and I had parted ways, not because of Zara, but because we'd grown apart, our paths diverging. I was okay with that. I'd learned to let go of what didn't serve me, to hold tight to what did. I still posted on Instagram, though I'd never chased a following. My account was a patchwork of my life. Books I loved, city skylines, quotes about healing. The ex-religious community was still a cornerstone, a reminder of the strength we drew from each other. One day, scrolling through my feed, I saw a post from a mutual friend, a photo of Zara at a family event. She looked different, older, less polished, her smile forced. Her bio still touted her MLM courses, but her posts were sparse, her engagement low. The perfect mom brand she'd clung to had faded, overshadowed by newer, shinier influencers. I didn't feel joy at her struggle, but I didn't feel guilt either. She'd made her choices, just as I'd made mine. I thought about that night in Bristol, the moment I'd decided to post the screenshot, to call her out. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about truth, about refusing to let someone else define me. I'd taken a risk, and it had paid off. Not in followers or likes, but in the clarity it brought, the community it strengthened, the power it reclaimed. I closed the app and stepped outside, the London air sharp with autumn. The city hummed around me, alive with possibility. I thought about the girl I'd been, the one who'd walked away from her family, her faith, her past. She'd been afraid, but she'd kept going. And now here I was, still standing, still speaking, still free. Zara had tried to silence me, but she'd only made my voice louder. And that was a victory she could never take away. Betrayal builds a cage, but truth opens the door, and once you're free, no one can chain you again.